They say a courtroom is supposed to be a place of order, but that day, it felt more like a battlefield in disguise. The room was silent, dead silent, except for the cold clink of cuffs wrapping around her wrists. Lieutenant Hayes, once the pride of naval special warfare, now stood in chains, an orange jumpsuit swallowing the uniform she wore with honor just months before. Her dog tag still hung around her neck, like some forgotten relic of a war to remember. The prosecutor's voice sliced through the tension like a bayonet. "You betrayed your country, Lieutenant." A thick folder of classified documents hit the judge's bench like a gavel of judgment. All eyes turned toward her. Not a single soul remembered the 22 lives she saved in Kandahar, or the 6 bullets she took dragging her commander to safety. All they saw now was the headline, "SEAL Sniper Betrays Navy." And yet, she didn't flinch, didn't blink. Her face was carved from stone, like someone who had learned long ago that pain never came with warning signs. They had been whispering long before the arrest, in the corridors, in the mess halls, behind closed doors. She'd felt it. Eyes that once saluted now shifted away. Respect replaced with suspicion. Word was someone had leaked encrypted mission files, details so classified even most brass couldn't access them. And when those files surfaced in enemy hands and 6 good men didn't come home, the Navy needed someone to blame, a symbol to point at, and she, black, female, lethal, fit the narrative far too easily. They didn't see the sniper who had risked it all, just a headline wrapped in scandal. The media ran wild. Talk shows debated loyalty. Experts who never saw war speculated on her guilt like it was a halftime show. And through it all, she remained silent. Because she knew the truth doesn't shout. It waits. What they forgot, what they never even cared to learn, was who Lieutenant Hayes really was. She wasn't just the Navy's first female SEAL sniper. She was the best marksman in her unit, male or female. Graduated top of her class, outshot seasoned veterans in wind tunnels and mountain drills. There was a photo, never published, of her kneeling in the sand, blood streaming down her arm, shielding a wounded child during a village extraction. That was the woman they put on trial. In Kandahar, she'd cleared a rooftop under heavy fire and carried her unconscious commander 2 blocks to the evac point. 6 bullets, 2 of them still lodged near her spine. Her file read like a novel of valor, but none of that made it to court. Not once did they say her name with honor, just rank, allegations, and the cold, clinical language of disgrace. The courtroom smelled like sweat and stale air, the kind that creeps in when fear replaces justice. The judge adjusted her glasses, her fingers trembling just enough to betray the nerves she tried to mask. "Lieutenant Hayes," she said, her voice thin, "you stand accused of leaking encrypted files that led to the deaths of 6 operatives. How do you plead?" Hayes raised her head slowly, locking eyes with the judge. Her voice was soft but ironclad. "Not guilty." A scoff came from the rows behind, one of those Pentagon suits with a clean shave and a dirty soul. "Typical," he muttered. "Break barriers just to break trust." She heard it. She always heard it. The way people said she didn't belong, even when she bled more than most. And then, just as the judge reached for the gavel, the doors slammed open, so hard they echoed like cannon fire across the courtroom walls. Every head snapped toward the entrance. A wall of uniformed officers stood at attention as Admiral Kiting walked through. Full Navy dress, stars on his shoulder, medals that told stories of their own. His presence wasn't just commanding, it was holy. The judge stood instinctively, caught between protocol and disbelief. "Admiral, this is a closed proceeding," she managed. He didn't stop, didn't blink. "Exactly why I'm here," he said. His voice carried across the room like it had its own gravity. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small hard drive, holding it like it weighed 100 pounds. "This contains the full comms logs and digital trace of the alleged transmission," he announced. "It proves that the file wasn't sent by Lieutenant Hayes. It was sent from a spoofed account, after she was already in custody." A hush fell across the room. Not shock, not outrage, just silence. The kind that comes when lies are peeled back too quickly. The prosecutor stiffened. The judge blinked like she was trying to wake up from a nightmare. The Admiral stepped forward, placing the drive gently on the bench like it was evidence from a murder scene. Not only that, he continued, but these logs show redactions, internal tampering, the kind only someone with high clearance could perform. His eyes swept across the courtroom. Someone in this room. Hayes looked up, really looked up, for the first time in months. Hope flickered behind her eyes like a dying candle catching wind. The prosecutor fumbled for words, stammered something about protocol and chain of custody, but Kading didn't give him an inch. I'm placing Major Caldwell under investigation for evidence manipulation and obstruction of justice, he said, cold as steel. And that was it. No drama, no shouting, just two MPs stepping forward like it was already written. Caldwell tried to protest, raised his voice. But it was too late. The courtroom that once treated him like royalty now turned their backs. The MPs cuffed him, and suddenly the irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who chained an innocent soldier was now being marched out in chains himself. He didn't look at her, couldn't. Hayes didn't smile, didn't cry. She just stared, her breathing steady, the weight of injustice slowly sliding off her shoulders. For the first time in months, the shackles around her wrists didn't feel so heavy. The judge, pale and trembling, turned to her. Lieutenant Hayes, this court owes you an apology. But Hayes said nothing, because her silence had always spoken louder than their words. The same system that trained her, raised her, and nearly buried her was now unraveling in its own courtroom. The press was waiting outside like wolves in tailored suits. Cameras flashed, microphones stretched forward, and voices piled over one another. Lieutenant Hayes, any comment? Do you feel vindicated? Are you going to sue? She stood there, her hands now free but still trembling. Months of fear and fury hadn't left her bones just yet. Admiral Kading stood beside her, a calm wall against the noise. He leaned in gently and said, You don't owe them anything, but if you want your truth told, now's the time. She took a deep breath, then another. Her voice was steady but raw. I served this country for 12 years, watched friends die, took bullets so others could live, and when someone framed me, everyone turned away, like none of that mattered. The crowd quieted. But the truth, it always finds air, she said, even if it has to claw through dirt to breathe. There was no triumphant music, no flags waving in the background, just stillness, and then a slow ripple of applause. Not for a war hero, but for a woman who stood tall when the world tried to crush her. She didn't smile, didn't wave. She simply turned and walked away, head held high. Her silence still louder than any scream. What no one saw, what the cameras missed, was how close she'd come to breaking. There were nights in that cell she nearly signed a false confession, just to end it, just to be free, even if it meant a lie. But in her darkest moment, she remembered something her father once told her, back when she was just a kid learning to shoot. They can lock your body, he said, but don't ever let them cage your truth. And that truth, buried under betrayal and silence, had finally roared.